that this innovation or policy implementation is going to go a long way in trying to curb the prices of food commodities. Because if taxes are taken away, duties are taken away from these staple commodities, we have the rice, we have wheat, we have maize, we have the cowpea. So you now calculate how many, if for instance, we have 10% tax on rice. If 10% tax is removed from rice, it's going to have a trickle-down effect on the price of rice. If we filter into the prices of rice, so we're going to have, let's say, 10% reduction in the prices of rice. So it's going to go a long way in reducing prices of commodity. But let's not forget that this is temporal. It's just for about 6 months, I suppose.
180 days.
180 days, which is 6 months. So it's going to, then afterwards, what next? So
yeah, but you know, even before we go to afterwards, we just saw the value of the naira. It's still dropping, and if they're going to import, thankfully no import duties, but they're still going to look for the FX to import. And if the value of the naira keeps dropping, you know, eventually we might feel maybe very minimal impact of it.
I quite agree with you. Even if the impact is going to be minimal, I know it's still going to be better than nothing. And the CBN is trying all they could to ensure that FX is stable. FX is stable. And if we see for quite some months, about 2 months now, the price of dollar has remained stable. We just have a little thick few days from now. So we believe that when they're able to fix these things and prices are stable and FX prices are stable, I know that even the price, even if it's going to be minimal, we are going to see some impact.
So I think we should go back to, you know, that issue that you brought up about afterwards. It's 180 days, that's about 4 months. So after the 4 months, is there something we could be doing, you know, within that 4 months to give us a bit of security for after the 4 months?
Okay, that's a good point. I quite agree with you. Afterwards, after the 6 months, what happens? So there is need for us to begin to address structural issues we have. Because if we talk about food inflation, which is the main or core driver of inflation, it is underpinned by structural issues. We begin to address the issue of insecurities in these states where food are produced, so that farmers can have access to their farms, and also address the issues of post-harvest losses. Because most times, these commodities, we don't have storage for these commodities. So government should also put in place all this before that 6 months elapse. If otherwise, it's just like you are running water on a rock. So we just see the effect, a short-time effect, and we go back to square zero if proper measures are not put in place to address the issue.
So, but at least for that period of 180 days, that's 6 months and 4 months, how do we expect that to affect our inflation numbers, even if it's temporal?
Of course, yes, we're going to see a shift, a downward shift in inflation numbers. Recently, we begin to see some decline. That is month-on-month inflation, which reflects the real inflation rates. Okay? So we have seen that there has been a trend over the months. Over 3 months now, we have seen a trend of decline, taking a downward trajectory. So it's going to have, at least on food, it's going to have impact. Food inflation is likely going to decline sharply before the end of the 6 months. There's going to be a sharp decline in food inflation, which will also impact the headline inflation.
So you think perhaps this is the plan that the government had when they set up that target? I know the CBN has a target of inflation. The last time I spoke with, the Chief Executive Officer of your company, FDC, Mr. Bismarck Arani, he had said that he expects inflation to be at about 24% by the end of the year. Because if we look at 6 months from now, I think that's like the first month or so of next year. So do you see this leading to that 24% perhaps inflation at the end of this year?
Of course, it's going to go a long way to bring about a decline in inflation. But let's not forget, it's going to go a long way. Looking at it from September, because when you put up a policy, the policy implementation, it takes time for this policy to begin to have effects on the economy or trickle down on the people. So that process is called transmission lag. So after the transmission lag, we are definitely going to begin to see inflation taper starting from September. September, October, we're going to see inflation taper. And by the end of the year, we're going to see.
But Dr. Nwokolo, I'll beg you to look at some other realities, because we see the fuel queues are back on the road. We hear stakeholders in the oil and gas saying that perhaps, not yet confirmed, that port prices also are increasing, and the price of petrol, that's energy cost, transportation cost. And that, of course, can also still feed into these inflation numbers. Perhaps we should have a bigger view of the picture.
Yes, even though we are projecting there's going to be a fall, there are some factors that are going to derail this trend. And those factors are even the minimum wage, proposed minimum wage. Because when minimum wage is increased sharply without a corresponding increase in aggregate outputs, it's going to be a problem. All belts will be on loose. Then secondly, is this fuel issue. So if it continued like this, I'm sorry, we may not be able to achieve it. So these are the things that may really obstruct these projections. So all things being equal, the inflation prices are supposed to decline. However,
they're supposed to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
However, these factors are the things that will either make or mar projections. Then we have, what else we have? We have the fuel prices that we are seeing now. We have queues all over the place. So we don't know if this particular announcement by NNPC takes effect. I really do not know if we are going to meet that projections.
Yeah, well,
then the money supply is another big issue.
Yeah, well,
another element in the room, because we saw that money supply has incessantly been on the decline, even after February that interest rates was hiked. It came down from about 79% to 69%, like 10% decline. But afterwards, we're going to see that beginning to increase from 63 to 73 and now 78. So it's another big factor that, if not curtailed, these projections may not see the
yeah, I guess as with almost everything in life, we have to be intentional if we really want to. We cannot just make pronouncements and hope that the target will be met. But thank you so much for your time, Dr. Ifeoma Nwokolo, Research Manager at Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you for having me.